Hello and welcome to the Environment This Week series section of Drishti IAS. I'm Aisha, and in today's episode we will be covering topics which are important from General Studies paper 3, that is environment and ecology. So the concept that we will be following is we have taken news from the current affairs, going deeper into the static portion of it, and in the end solving practice questions with regard to the topics that we have covered. So the topics that we have covered or we are covering in today's episode are Masai giraffe, Nilgiri Thar, changes in the Arctic biome, or environmentalism in India. So these are the four topics. Let us begin with the first topic, and that is the Masai giraffe. So whenever we talk about the term Masai giraffe, they are basically found in the African continent and specifically in the East Africa. So they are found near the Great Rift Valley in East Africa. If you will look at this map, we have zoomed out on the map of the East Africa and we have found the Great Rift Valley. So Great Rift Valley is basically a rift which is created at the East Africa, and this is because of the tectonic disruption, tectonic plates disruption. So a valley has been created, and this valley actually, it is not that it has completely separated Africa into two parts, but the Eastern Africa is, you can say, separated from the rest of the Africa with this valley. So it appears like that there is a difference or there is a depression between the East Africa and the rest of Africa. So this area is with regard to the Rift Valley, and the Masai giraffe is basically found at the regions of the Eastern Africa. So the new study has shown that they are more endangered than previously thought. So this came to the news because the Masai giraffes, the number of the Masai giraffes are decreasing, and what people or the environmentalists used to think that they are becoming endangered, the number of the Masai giraffe is decreasing at a faster pace than the environmentalists thought. Then the population split into two parts for thousands of years, unable to interbreed or exchange genes due to the valley. And one of the reasons for the decreasing population of the Masai giraffe is the presence of the Rift Valley, because the population which is situated at both the sides of the Rift Valley, they are not able to meet each other, and that is why they are not able to breed with each other. And that is one of the reasons that why the population is on a decline, because of the rift or because of the depression, the meeting of the giraffes on both the sides is not taking place. Then no overlapping genes between east and the west giraffe populations, because they cannot climb the steep leaves of the Gojri lift. Now because of the Rift Valley, the giraffes are not able to communicate with each other and interbreeding is not taking place. And if we talk about the Great Rift Valley, then it was formed due to the tectonic activity stretching over 7,000 kilometers, and volcanoes and hot springs are also present at the Rift Valley. Now coming to the significance of the Masai giraffe, why is it considered so important? And they are one of the tallest giraffes present on the globe. Now significance is that they are native to Tanzania and southern Kenya, and they are also known as Kilimanjaro giraffe, and Kilimanjaro is also the highest point in the African continent. And the numbers of the Masai giraffe has dropped from 70,000 to 35,000 in the last 30 years. So the number of the Masai giraffe in the last 3 decades, it has almost come to the half of its population. Few of the threats to the Masai giraffe are habitat fragmentation due to farming or livestock. Now habitat fragmentation is that the example is what I am giving you, that a large area is now being divided into the small stretches because of any reasons like the livestock or the farming taking place or the grazing of animals taking place. So because of the fragmented habitat, the threat is becoming a threat to its habitat. Then poor gene pool, they are sensitive to gene. Now poor gene pool is also one of the reasons, and the giraffe not being able to communicate with each other on both the sides of the Rift Valley, which is also contributing to the gene pool being poor in category and not able to increase. Then low calf survival even if the reproduction takes place, but the survival of the calf is difficult, and many a times it has been observed that the death of the calves are taking place. Then hunting, prolonged drought. Now African region, if we talk about the African region, then the North African region is also the region of the arid and the semi-arid areas, and specifically with regard to the Sahara Desert and the Sahel region. So prolonged drought is one of the reasons that the Maasai giraffes are not able to find proper food for themselves. Relocating giraffes for interbreeding is impractical because moving from one place or moving from one habitat to another habitat is not easy to adopt. Now, what is the ecological role of the Maasai giraffe? So they help in pollination because when they go to a tree and then they try to eat the leaves or the fruits on the tree, then with them they also carry the pollens from one place to another place. That is why in the African region, giraffes are considered to be one of the major contributor or one of the major contributors in the pollination process. Then biodiversity conservation, controlling invasive plant species because they feed on the trees or they feed on the plants, so they help in keeping in control the invasive species, because if the quantity or the numbers of the invasive plants or invasive trees will increase, then that will cause a lot of damage to the environment or the ecosystem. Now the socio-economic role is it supports local livelihoods and tourism because it helps in carrying the stuff from one place to another place, and also is a major attraction for the tourist. So when the tourists come, the Maasai giraffe becomes a major attraction because of their physical appearance and also because of the spots, the large brown spots which are present on their body. And then the IUCN status of the Maasai giraffe is endangered. And before moving forward, Drishti IAS, Drishti learning app, the students who are part of the IAS GS online foundation course, they are able to get new features on the Drishti learning app, and that is the inclusion of the artificial intelligence to make their study more smarter and more efficient. So there are few of the major features, that is AI quiz, that you can get the quizzes with regard to the topic which you are studying. Then comes the AI summary. You can get the summary of the lecture which you are taking, and then ask me anything. So any query you have with regard to the lecture or anything else, that also you can ask under it. So the inclusion of the artificial intelligence with your study so that you can do a smart study. So take full advantage of it, and this feature is available at the Drishti Learning app. Now coming on to the second topic, and that is the Nilgiri Thar. Now look at this picture. This is the picture of a Nilgiri Thar, which is also the state animal of the Tamil Nadu, and they are basically found at an altitude of more than 1000 plus meters. So they are the only mountain animals which are present in the southern India. Now coming to the topic is that the Nilgiri Thar is also known as the Nilgiri Bex or Du or Varaidu, and it is the state animal of Tamil Nadu. They have very high ecological or cultural importance because it is not that they are only present in the state of Tamil Nadu. They are mountain animals, they are eloculate animals, they are hoofed animals. So the males are identified by a light brown saddle patch on the back, and the males are bigger in size as compared to the females. Then they are only mountain dwelling ungulate species in the southern India. Now about the habitat and the distribution of the Nilgiri Thar. So that is, they are endemic to southern western Ghats, mainly Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So you can say the western Ghats, not only to Tamil Nadu, they are also present in Kerala. But you can say the southern India is where they are found. They thrive in tropical mountain grasslands, shoal forest, rocky high altitude areas. And then Iravikulam National Park has the highest population and highest density of the Nilgiri Thar, and the Iravikulam National Park is present in the state of Kerala. Then what adaptations and conservation with regard to Nilgiri Thar? So that is, they are adapted to high altitude, cold, wet environment. They are diurnal and stress tolerant. Diurnal is they are able to see during the daytime. And then the IUCN status is endangered. The Wildlife Protection Act 1972, it comes under the Schedule 1. It means that it has the highest protection within our country. Then significant population decline due to habitat loss and poaching. And according to the 2015 WWF report, the estimated wild population is more than 3,000. Now about the Nilgiri Thar project. So the Nilgiri Thar project was launched by the state of Tamil Nadu in the year 2022, and the time period has been from 2022 to 2025. So it is around 5 years. And the aim is to expand the habitat so that they get more area to move around. Then raise awareness about their importance and why they are important for the biodiversity. Then conduct surveys and radio telemetry studies so that the exact number of the Nilgiri Thar in our country and also the exact number of Nilgiri Thar in the southern India can be predicted. Then the plan to reintroduce Thars to historical habitats and address immediate threats. Immediate threats needs to be taken care of so that the IUCN status, which is endangered as of now, must not go into critically endangered, and the number of Nilgiri Thar must not go below. Now next topic is the changes in the Arctic biome. Now when we talk about Arctic biome, you must know that the Arctic Circle, that is the 66.5 degree north and above area, the area that we call the tundra and the taiga area. So basically the area which is the area of the Siberian region or the North Europe. So the news is with regard to the Arctic biome, and that is rising wildfires and carbon emissions. Now the Arctic biome, which was earlier was working as a carbon sink, is now working as a carbon release. So the rising wildfires and carbon emissions, so the destructive wildfires in US, Japan, and if we talk about the California wildfires, it destroyed 14,000 plus buildings, and then the Japan's fire displaced over 4,200 residents. So wildfire is basically the widespread fire which spreads from one area to another area and engulfs a huge area and goes on for days and months. Then according to the CAM's report, 8 lakh tons of carbon was emitted in January 2025 alone, which is 4x higher than a decade ago. So the carbon emission is taking place and the wildfires are adding on to the emission of the carbons. And if we talk about India, then Uttarakhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh saw most wildfire incidents. More than 5,000 wildfires in 8 months in Uttarakhand alone. So Uttarakhand, you can say, experiences a very high numbers of wildfires in India. And forest fires in India release 69 million tons of CO2 annually, and that is on a rise. It is not decreasing. Now if we talk about the Arctic boreal zone, so the point that I just told you, that is the Arctic Circle is 66.5 degree north and the area of above it, so it is basically the area which is covered with snow, and you can say the area of tundra and taiga. Then the Arctic boreal zone turns from carbon sink to source. Now carbon sink, it was earlier, it means that earlier it was absorbing the carbon which was present in the atmosphere, but now it is not able to absorb the carbon, rather on the other hand it has started to release it, or it has become a source of it. So once absorbed more carbon then emitted, now reversed. So what earlier the amount of or the quantity of carbon which it was emitting, more than that it was absorbing, but now the case has reversed. It means the emission has become more than what it is absorbing. If we talk about the nature climate change study, then around 30% of a Arctic boreal zone now emits more than it absorbs, and that is a very crisis, you can say a situation of a crisis for the environment, because if we talk about the oceans, if we talk about the forests, if we talk about the Arctic, then these are the areas which has been or historically has been a major source of carbon absorption. Major emitters is Alaska around 44%, Northern Europe 25%, Siberia 13%. And then fires like 2003 East Siberia and 2012 in Canada contributed to the major emissions of carbon, and few of the causes is permafrost melting, soil dryness, vegetation shifts, organic matter decay, which leads to the CO2 emission. Soil dryness is one of the major reasons, and the organic matter decay is also one of the reasons, because it carry fires very easily, and the spread of the fire also takes place from one area to another area. Now coming on to the global implications of it, so that is wildfires destroy natural carbon stores, and that leads to the more release of the CO2, and more release of the CO2 leads to higher temperature. And then the rising temperature, dry soil, more fire and more carbon emission. So basically the climate change, it is adding on to the climate change and the global warming scenario, because if the temperature will increase, it will add on to the already increasing and ever increasing problem of the climate change. Then NOAA Arctic Report Card of 2024 has confirmed that the Arctic tundra is becoming a carbon source, and one of the reasons, and nowadays only as the April is going on, you are able to experience the rising heat and the rising temperatures, and the topic of the heat wave have started to come in the news every single day, that the temperatures are crossing the 40 degrees Celsius marks already, and will be reaching on to very higher levels in the coming days. Now the last topic becomes the environmentalism in India. When we say environmentalism, it means that the protection of the environment needs to be taken care of, or the protection of environment needs to be done. It means preserving and looking after the forests, looking after growing more and more trees, looking after the aspects which are threatening the survival of the forest. So basically you need to take care of the environment, you need to take care of the biodiversity of your area. So as a modern phenomena emerged post-industrial revolution due to rapid industrialization and the ecological damage. As the industrialization process was going on, the environmentalists and the conservationists realized with time that if the speed of the industrialization and the urbanization and the development will keep on increasing, then a time will come when the environment will be lacking behind the process of industrialization. So the concept of environmentalism evolved, that environment also needs care and environment also needs to be taken care of. Then the Europe's industrial era triggered large scale environmental degradation, and this prompted the environmental activism also. Now let us talk about the first wave of Indian environmentalism, how it took place in India. So it began in early 20th century during the freedom movement, and Indian thinkers proposed sustainable development models contrasting Western industrialization. Now sustainable development models become important because you need to take care of the present needs without compromising of the needs of the future generation. What is important, that also needs to be followed, and what we are giving to the future generation, that should not be compromised, because if we will not take care of it properly, then what we will be passing on to the future generation will be problematic in nature. Then it is influenced by large population, scarce resources and fragile ecosystem. If we talk about the key Indian thinkers who have talked about environmentalism, then that is Rabindranath Tagore. Then they have talked about organic farming, Albert and Gabriel Howard. Then Patrick Giddens have talked about the urban planner. Now let us talk about the second wave of environmentalism. So that is one of the example is the Chipko movement during the time of 1970s. This was the grassroots movement in Himalayas, and one of the most famous movement with regard to the protection of the trees. So people hugged the trees to prevent deforestation, and this talks about merged social justice with ecological balance. And this also used Gandhian non-violence method, led to the formation of India's Ministry of Environment in the year 1980, because violence was not done by the people. They very in a peaceful manner hugged the trees to tell people that deforestation is not the solution. Economic liberalization's impact. So during the time of 1990s, this boosted growth, reduced poverty, and resolved forex crisis. But with this development, the need for the environmentalism also increased at the same time. But the environmental decline due to the market-driven development, ignoring ecology. So the conservationists at a very high pace talked about it. Now coming on to the third wave of environmentalism, a new youth-led movement concerned with climate change and future generation and visible impacts of global warming. And few of the new technologies or the new solutions are also coming. One of the new solutions is the technique of the Miyawaki, that is the urban forest, or planting more and more trees at a greater density in a lesser space. So these were the 4 topics that we discussed, and now coming on to the practice question related to these 4 topics, and like always, you people will give me the answer in the comments section. So write 1, 2, 3 and 4 and write the answer in front of it. So the first practice question is, where is the Maasai giraffe typically found? South Africa, Central Africa, East Africa or West Africa? Second question, what is the IUCN status of the Nilgiri Thar? Extinct, vulnerable, critically endangered or endangered? Third, what is the Arctic boreal zone absorbing less carbon now? What is the reason of it? Increased ocean salinity, temperature rise and permafrost melting, higher rainfall, or none of the above? And the last question is, when did the Chipko movement begin? 1973, 1974, 1975 or 1976? So give me the answer in the comments below. And that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Till we meet next time, keep reading, keep writing and keep subscribing to the channel. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.